The Art Beat, a weekly program putting you in touch with artists and arts events from the J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts at Texas Tech University. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Art Beat from Texas Tech University's Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts. I'm your host, Peter Martins, and I'm here this week with Heather Warren Crow, who is a faculty member in the Department of Interdisciplinary Arts and also does quite a bit in the School of Art itself. Welcome, Heather.
Happy to be here.
So you're very much involved in a lot of areas of art, I would say, in town and on campus. And one of the things I'd like to start off by talking about is a space that you collaboratively oversee somewhere on 43rd in Boston, I believe, is the general address.
42nd in Boston.
Sorry,
yeah.
Okay. Called the Co-opt Research and Projects space. And so why don't you just start by telling us about that space, its genesis, and who helps you in coordinating that space.
Sure. We've been doing Co-opt since, I think, 2018. It was started by Cody Arnall, who is a professor in the School of Art, Aaron Heggert, also in the School of Art, Natalie Heggert, who does teach in the School of Art, but is also editor at Southwest Contemporary, which is an arts magazine, Eric Simpson, who is an alum of Texas Tech School of Art and also runs Addle-Do Farms with his family, and Seth Warren Crow, who I'm married to. He is a professor in the School of Theater and Dance. Andrew Weathers, who was unaffiliated with Texas Tech, fantastic Mills graduate in experimental music and recording media. He's no longer involved in it. And Justin Hauser, who is a staff member at Texas Tech and a fine arts doctoral program alum, now runs the music aspects of the venue. I think I got everybody. It is a wonderful group, collectively run, messy type of endeavor in which some very busy people occasionally meet over Zoom and vote on things. And we have art exhibitions, we have events, and we have musical performances that are especially experimental music. The really great thing about it is there's a huge expanse of space from, let's say, San Antonio to Santa Fe, where touring musicians want a place to stop. And so we've been able to have some really interesting touring musicians that maybe a venue as small as ours wouldn't normally get, because they just want to stop somewhere for the night and they get to take the door money and have dinner, and sometimes we give them a place to stay. So we have experimental music shows from traveling musicians all over.
Oh, great. Yes, and those of you listening may have been to Addle-Do Farms, as was mentioned, one of the founders of this. You might not associate a corn maze with experimental art installations, but yes, they do in fact go together. And in fact, he's got one installation, I guess I would call it, out at Addle-Do Farms, kind of on the other side of the property from the corn maze.
Yeah, they have a whole Tableland Center for Bioregional Art that's separate from Co-opt, but it's run by Eric and Aaron Heggert, who's with Co-opt, and they have multiple installations there, and they turned grain silos into places to see art. They have a residency there, and they're really hooked up with the land art program at Texas Tech. So it really brings the kind of artists who are interested in landscape and the Southwest in particular will come to Lubbock and make work.
Well, one of the things about Lubbock, I've been here for quite a long time, and I still find these interesting corners of arts practice and research going on that I didn't know anything about, and so it's continually surprising. Could you tell us a bit about what's going on right now at the Co-opt space? Yes,
I'm so excited. We've got an exhibition by New York-based artist Audra Wolowick. She's a sound artist, and she is a trained sculptor, but she makes sculptures that integrate speakers, and so they play usually recorded voices in her work. She's very interested in the relationship between the fluency of the voice and water. A lot of her work comes out of personal experiences and being a stutterer and her wanting to kind of claim a kind of fluency, but also really able to think about what fluency means from a distance. And so she's brought this kind of affective relationship to water that we have as humans together with thinking about speech and as it moves and changes and flows. I asked Audra to come to Lubbock for a residency that was funded by the Lott Fund, which I'm so thankful for. And she was here for about a week. The original prompt was to make work that has to do with the Ogallala Aquifer, our primary source of water and the largest aquifer in the world, as I have discovered, which is super interesting. It's also being drained at an alarming rate. And what Audra did is she worked with Texas Tech students to she recorded them talking about their experiences with water, their emotional relationship with water in relation to their childhood, but also thinking about water as something that's not visible in this case, but is underground, and this connection with a whole underground world that most people don't think about because we just turn on our taps and there it is, right? But unless you're very aware of the problems of arid environments, you might take it for granted. And so she did a bunch of recordings in this very room and sliced and diced the recordings and made a wonderful installation with different student voices and mine, because I can't help but jumping into every project like this and just being, I'll be the best student ever. So that's what I did. And the speakers are kind of attached by this wire net. So it's this net of speakers going from the floor to the wall in this really beautiful way, just these isolated speakers where you have voices coming out, and it's mixed in a certain way that some voices will get louder, others will get softer. And so she has, and it's all students and myself talking about, and Seth Waring-Crowe talking about our relationship with water, or doing improvisations based on allowing sound to flow freely through our bodies. The cool thing about Co-opt is for the past maybe 4 years, we've had this initiative called KOOPT Radio. And this was something that I started where we have various artists that work with sound, and we play their sound pieces through our low power radio, which means it's a legal endeavor. You can't just I guess that's what you can't just set up a radio station and and do your thing, at least according to the government. But it's very low power. So what it means is that you can pretty much only pick it up in the parking lot of Co-opt. But I like it as this sort of site-specific performance of, you can pick it up from the road when you're driving by, and what it ends up being is about sound coming into focus from pure noise and coming into focus and then exiting. So it becomes this performance of noise, static, and then you hear a voice and it emerges and then it goes away. Or you could just park right outside Co-opt and listen to it. And so the same things that are playing in the gallery are playing in a slightly different mix through Co-opt Radio. That's part of Audra's exhibit. And she also has, this is a complicated show, or multi-form show. She has a series of scores, so these sort of prompts for performance, kind of like musical notation, but much more free form. These are text and graphic scores that students made, a lot of them fine arts doctoral program students, and a poetry student and an MFA students in art. They did drawings and made kind of text poetry from mining texts that have to do with underground water, and they are on display. They've been wheat pasted to the wall, so you get to see this kind of visual prompt where the sound that would come out of that score is really something that you imagine in your mind by reading and looking at it.
Well, fascinating. So, we're talking about your position in the Department of Interdisciplinary Arts, and it sounds like that's exactly the sort of thing that's happening in this gallery. The exhibit you describe here, it sounds like quite a mix between sound and music and visual arts as well.
Absolutely.
I'm especially intrigued by the radio. So not to take anybody for more than a moment away from 105.7 where you're tuned right now, but what is the frequency of that?
I should have said
radio?
It. 89.9.
Okay.
Very hard to get on an old radio where you're pushing this. That seems to be part of the performance, is us fiddling with these radios, because we have some in the gallery as well, and trying to get the 89.9. It's so interesting because if you occupy a frequency, I guess the military can sometimes take it back. So that's part of it too. Like, is it around? Has the military, what sort of secret messages? I don't know. Some codes are coming through it. But I love the fragility of radio, and it's kind of outmoded. Not that a regular radio station is most certainly active and present, but this sort of homespun radio feels very 20th century, and I love that century. So I'm committed to doing some things that seem kind of low tech.
Yeah, great. Okay, so check out 89.9 if you're around 42nd in Boston, but then, of course, bring it right back to 105.7 where you are right now. Thank you for that description. That's wonderful. So if I can zoom out for a moment here, as I've said a couple of times, your position is as an interdisciplinary arts faculty member, and I know your performance background is really both in visual arts, but also theater. There's some puppetry in there. I'd love you to take for a moment to describe to our audience and me too. We think of this general term of performance art as this kind of new still thing that we can't necessarily grab onto, don't necessarily know exactly what it is. Can you give us a working definition of what a performance artist is, or what performance art consists of?
If I were stuck in an elevator and someone wanted an answer for how to define performance art real quick, I would say it's art in which the artist uses their own body as material. That's my very short answer. And then the long answer is thinking more about how the history of experimental theater and of installation art and environmental art came together to create these environments that include people, light, sound, movement. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And we could probably talk all day about key figures in that movement, but we unfortunately don't have all day. I know one of the things you do in the School of Art is you participate and help out a lot of students in the kind of the practice area, the MFAs, even some BFAs. Can you speak, now that we're in March heading toward April, looking at the end of the year, where can the public see some of those kind of final shows of some of these students, the MFA shows? How does that work?
First Friday in May is when my performance art students will most likely be performing. I don't have all the details set out, but the May 1st Friday is such an exciting time because that's when a lot of MFA classes have their culminating performances. So in the spaces that are either in Luca or around Luca, you can find our MFA student work, including many of my performance art students will be there, and likely our class will be there. So that's a really safe bet. And there are classes like Aaron Heggert has a class where every first Friday this semester, they're showing work in progress. And that's a really wonderful window into how artists work, but also allowing artists to see their objects as being in development, as being transforming. And really, I like to think of that as a performance. It's not set, it's ephemeral.
Great. So you can check out this interesting work at the Co-opt Research and Project Space on 42nd Boston, as we've mentioned, and also at First Fridays, and some of the gallery spaces associated with the Louise Hopkins Underwood Center for the Arts and associated ancillary spaces down there in that part of town.
Absolutely. We have a couple specific events at Co-opt. If you're interested in seeing Audra's exhibition, we have gallery hours by appointment. So you can email me at heather.warren-crow@ttu.edu and I can hook you up. But we have some other events that you can just show up and enjoy. One of them is Art After Hours, and it's organized by the Lubbock Cultural Arts Foundation. And this is an event intended to promote conversation amongst creative people. They're holding it at Co-opt on Thursday, April 24th from 5:30 to 7. So stop by after work and check out Audra Wolowick's exhibition and talk to other creative people in Lubbock, make some friends, network. I think that'll be great. And we also have an initiative called Co-opt Voice, where I've taken a phone number that's just voicemail and I put sound art as our outgoing message. Right now we have a workup by artist Pedro Velez, and you can just listen to it like it's an outgoing message, but it's a really, really weird outgoing message. And that number is 806-305-2500. So you can just call it and experience what we've got. We should probably be changing that up soon, so call it twice.
Well, great. Another thing to remember here, 806-305-2500 if you want to hear an interesting voicemail art installation. And I want to end by thanking Dr. Heather Warren Crow for being with us today here on The Art Beat.
It was my pleasure.
We'll see you next time. The Art Beat, a weekly program putting you in touch with artists and arts events from the J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts at Texas Tech University.